Welcome back to Kryptolytix, giving you a fresh take on crypto analytics. And this is your crypto recap, where I cover some of the things going on in the crypto space. So let's jump in. Okay, so just starting off a little differently today. So not going to look at the cycle chart, but going to have a look at this 3-day index chart for Bitcoin. And I identified this in a post, essentially, that I posted on my X. And you can find a link to that in the description below. But what I have identified is what potentially looks like an ABC corrective pattern. So, you know, we had the high and then we came back down. There was like triple top calls here, but like this high, you know, was like lower, I suppose. So I'm going to sort of just ignore this little bump as just a impulsive move to the upside after a big drop, especially after a big move to the upside as well. So what I'm basically looking at is this as an ABC corrective pattern. So if you know anything about Elliot wave theory, is that essentially everything kind of moves in waves. And well, here's the cycle chart. You can see I've got these numbers on the chart here. So these are the waves. And I was looking for that 4 wave, which is the corrective pattern, extended corrective pattern to the downside and pullback, especially after the 3, which is generally the longest Elliot wave. So anyway, and the most expansive, generally speaking, although 5 could very well be quite expansive as well. So the long and short is I'm looking at this as a ABC at the moment. And if we come down further, especially down to like the 50K level, then that's been invalidated. We still could come back down to the 57, 58K level. But for me, that's one of the reasons why I aggressively bought this dip, and I was telegraphing it all over my X that I was. But to me, I've kind of identified this as an ABC corrective pattern. So we didn't come as low as some of these other supports, but maybe they were all front run. So that's also something to consider, right? Because these levels are being watched by just about everyone. So, you know, if you get too greedy with your downside targets, sometimes you miss them. So that's why I was just aping. I mainly bought Bitcoin and Solana, but I also bought Ethereum, Link, and Arbitrum, as well as Wormhole. Anyway, you know, the big shopping list, which I covered in, I think my last video, I covered some of the things that I was buying in the dip. But anyway, upside target for this, I think, would be between the 80, 90K region. So that could be in play right now. So to 80K, it's another 20% up. And to 90K, it's another 34% up. So anyway, let's get on with the updates that I have been posting on my X. So happy Bitcoin halving to everyone out there. And yep, so we had the halving countdown reach 0 on 420. So even Bitcoin's become a meme, right? So yeah, that's it. It's done and it has reset. I've covered all the sort of Bitcoin price action that generally happens after the fact in previous videos, so won't drag on with that. But anyway, block reward's been halved, but the transaction fees on Bitcoin have spiked up to crazy levels. So that's the other thing as well, is sure, the block reward might be halved, but the transaction fees are made up for it. Now, what's this for? It's potentially, I think, because of runes. Now, I'll cover that in a little bit, but that's essentially what it means. So the halving has half the block reward, but validators will be loving this. So while Bitcoin OGs and boomers like myself don't like the idea of building on Bitcoin's base layer, maybe a layer 2, and it's another thing I'll harp on more about shortly. But in terms of keeping miners profitable, transaction fees is something that will keep miners profitable even during drawdown periods. So that is one thing I suppose miners probably are okay with, the building on Bitcoin's base layer. But the fact that fees have been anywhere up from, you know, $100 to $500 per transaction because of runes, that is potentially problematic. So anyway, I don't know how long the runes narrative will be so hyped, but at the moment, it's definitely something gained a lot of traction in a short period of time. Now, just quickly, we'll stay on track here. So a reminder, so when the biggest investment vehicle in China takes a big hit, big money will look for alpha elsewhere. So the Bitcoin ETFs will start listing in the next week or two. This is the Chinese property market. And I covered in my last video that I just came back from China, and, you know, some of my friends with property are sort of in the dumps a bit about the valuation of their property going down, and that's due to supply and demand dynamics, and also just the struggle from the building sector in terms of residential buildings and all that sort of stuff. Like, they just keep building more and more, and they're not really filling out with people. So supply and demand dynamics obviously have caused this, but nevertheless, that this is one thing that I'm sort of anticipating. Usually it takes about a week or two for ETFs to list once they're approved. So they've been approved, so we just have to wait a couple of weeks, and then we'll start to see some inflows from Hong Kong ETFs most likely. The fees have been announced for ETF firm Victory Securities announced fees for their Bitcoin ETFs. So there you go. There's a couple of the fees announced. So that's all happening, and it's something to look forward to. I'm sure we'll start to see those populate into CoinGlass so we can actually keep track of them, along with BlackRock and all the rest. Remember that the Hong Kong Bitcoin ETF entities have not yet listed, but have filed post-approval. Now, let's just have a quick look at potential money that could inflow into the ETFs based on this information. So there are about 470 billionaires in China and Hong Kong combined that will likely be looking for alpha in Bitcoin if they haven't done so already back in 2017 before Bitcoin China or BTC China closed. Now, this was the biggest crypto exchange in China for years, right? So this was basically the main place that all the Chinese investors went for altcoins at the time, which they weren't the ones that we have today, essentially. There was a few that still get sort of mentioned every now and then, but for the most part, it was just Bitcoin trading. And remember, I mentioned in previous videos, there was Paxful as well, but it was a bit more clunky than like a basic centralized exchange. But here are the current companies that we're looking at. So as of April 19, 2024, which is when I did this, the Hong Kong SEC, or the SFC, I should say, sorry, has granted conditional approval for 3 asset management companies to launch spot Bitcoin ETFs. So that's Harvest, China Asset Management, and Becerra Asset Management in partnership with Hashkey. So they've been given conditional approval. So once these things pass, then that's when hopefully we'll start to see some of those inflows in from the Chinese and Hong Kong market. And again, like it'd only be big money that would be able to invest in this stuff. I think that small fish wouldn't know how to get their assets into Hong Kong to buy this. So it'll just be big money most likely that will be able to figure out a way to get into the Hong Kong financial markets. So just something quickly I thought I would mention is that Pionex is doing a giveaway at the moment. So you can come over to their site or to their page on X, for example, and you can just go through and perform these tasks, and you go into the runner for earning some Bitcoin, which is pretty cool. So that's running until the 25th. So you got a couple of days to do this still. And yeah, if you've never used Pionex before, there's a link in the description below. If you want to check it out, that's where I do all my bot trading personally. But anyway, just thought I would mention that because, it's potentially free money. So why not? I cover airdrops a lot, and so I might as well cover stuff like this as well. So I started covering some short-term price action charts on my X. I was looking at this yesterday. We were getting a breakout of this structure and our first test of this underside resistance here. Now I can bring up the actual chart so we can look at it, and we can see we rejected and we started rejecting around here. So now this resistance, which, if we have a look, the resistance is rejection here, support here, is now hopefully going to turn into support. We've got a slow increase in open interest, but nothing too drastic. So there's still plenty of fuel left in the tank for more upside. We're very close to 70K again, which is pretty nuts. And as I said in my last 3 videos, when I see blue in a bull market like this, I buy. Now, that's one of the reasons why I was aggressively buying around the 60K level, but nevertheless, it looks like we are clearing some of these resistance levels that I was basically talking about in these posts. So this chart here is my 12-hour chart for Bitcoin, which is the one I trade with. And you can see that, well, that's my long entry there. Look at all these pivot surge entries for Bitcoin. It flashed 3 of them, which is pretty intense. That just goes to show that the cumulative volume index was really shifting in all of these. So there was a lot of big buying stepping in. It wasn't really obvious on the chart, but the pivot surge picked it up. So, I mean, look at this. How perfect this has been. Sell there, buy there, sell there, buy there, sell there. I mean, this is pretty great. So far, that's my position there because I started building it from here. And yeah, I'm currently up on that. But nevertheless, we're slowly getting the trend meter here for the CVI shift to bullish. It's taking its time though, but once this flips back to green, that will be both trend meters in the green, which means that there's a lot of potential that we start to see some decent upside. But do we just continue on from here, or do we keep ranging? Well, that's the ultimate question, right? We're still stuck in a range technically. That's the lower part of our range. That's the upper part of our range. So it's about 71K. So if we just keep bouncing around between these levels, then I mean, I'll get a signal on the chart here. Most likely I'll get a pivot surge signal when we're in the top. If there's a major sell-off at those levels, then that's probably going to put in a sell signal, which I'll take because it's been quite good so far in this range. So May, let's talk about seasonality. May is coming, and what could we see in May? So according to Bitcoin seasonality, May is actually a good month overall with potential drawdown until October. So here's our seasonality according to CoinDesk. So March Jan was actually, yeah, Jan was not a great month this year. Feb was very good. March, it did have a bit of drawdown from what I recall. April was really good. I mean, that's true, at least from the start of April until the end. And look at May. May is crazy. So, I mean, if seasonality is anything to go by, then that's pretty good. But the sell in May and go away could be, you know, June. And that's happened a lot of the time in the past as we have these mid-year cool-offs. So if we have a look here, generally September's the worst, and then we get this sort of drawdown period. So maybe this is when we range, and maybe this will be meme coin season. Maybe, you know what I mean? If Bitcoin's boring and tracking sideways for months at a time, then people will just be throwing their money at memes, let's be honest. That's just how it goes, right? So that's one part of the seasonality, and this was the chart that I covered before when I said around 64K that this could be the path that we're on right now if seasonality is anything to go by. And so far, as I showed before, looks like it's okay, and it seems to be playing out. So I already covered that just before, so let's move on. Also, I noticed across the board, the funding has mainly reset. Now I've actually filtered this to anything between minus 50% and minus 0.166. So you can see it was very bearish on the 14th of April. That was when we got that massive dump, essentially. And you can see that it's sort of, you know, we're coming back into sort of a bit more neutral to positive. So these were great buying opportunities when funding rate was so negative, as I've mentioned in prior videos, but we still got like decent amount of negative funding. Now let's have a quick look at the CoinGlass Live, which was the source for this. So we can see just how much negative funding we still have. Wow, look at that. So we still have a decent amount of negative funding. So people are actually shorting this. So this little pump here, people are aggressively shorting this. Well, maybe not super aggressively, but you know, we've got price moving to the upside, although the last update on this was 66.779, which is pretty much where it is right now at time of recording. So people are actually shorting this, which I guess is fair enough. It would make it a lower high. But yeah, you can quite clearly see, if we look at the funding here on Bitcoin, shorts have stepped up big time. So does that mean we're going to get a short squeeze in the not too distant future, as in over the next day or two? Well, that's definitely a potential path that could play out. So we've got negative funding stepping in big time, and what happens when that happens? You know, it means we've got a lot more liquidity to the upside. You can quite clearly see here on the liquidation heat map this big yellow area here. So that means, look at these, all these guys got taken up from this move, and then people have just aggressively started opening more shorts, and you can see it's actually a wider area, so there's a lot more aggressive shorts stepping into the market here. So it looks like there's some pretty aggressive shorting taking place. So that's, you know, creating sell pressure, that's for sure. And in terms of the biggest spot where the most number of liquidations will take place, well, there's some below price for sure. But look at this massive area here. This is an insane amount of liquidity. This is billions and billions of dollars in liquidation potential. So if we do get to this level, this would create an insane amount of buying pressure. You know, Bitcoin does have a tendency of taking liquidity and then just moving against it. But this amount of liquidity above is crazy, right? And if these guys don't cut their positions, well, then that's just potentially fuel for a big push to the upside. So let's look at some possible price predictions, also based on the Wyckoff, or Wyckoff, depending on how you pronounce it, chart patterns. So this is a Re-Accumulation schematic, and we could be in sort of a spring phase, and then we get the upthrust, although this is just phase B. This is just showing the basic phases. But this was posted, I posted this on the 18th, and it was another reason why I was like, well, this could be very well what we're in right now, because look, this looks very, very similar. It's stuck in a range, does, you know, very similar price action, right? This was a triple top as well, triple top, look at that. I mean, it's almost perfect into the schematic. And as I said in the post, we really don't have long to find out if this is going to play out or not. So this is our path to 80K, 90K, essentially, if this is actually playing out. It looks to be possibly playing out, so let's just see how it goes, right? But if you're bullish on Bitcoin, then stuff like this is more bull fuel, I guess. Also, in terms of long-term price action, we're currently, you know, if we look at the cycles and what's happened in the past, we're currently in the green zone, which is a expansive phase. So, you know, we have like a move to the upside, and then the green zone is this massive expansion to the upside. You know, again, accumulation phase, and then massive expansion, and then we have the bear market after. So I think this box is currently measured to halfway through next year. I don't know if we'll get that kind of length in the cycle, but there's a very good chance that we will. We might actually get extended cycle as well. There's all these theories flying around, but nevertheless, we're in the green zone now, so it's time to keep your eyes on the prize. that is Bitcoin. Now, as I said in this post, Bitcoin doesn't really like to respect diagonal trend lines, but this is something that is happening. So we've got a higher low at 61.5K, then continuation up to 66K. Well, the answer is yes, because we're literally at 66.8 right now. And then Asia came in and dumped the market. And I didn't really know at the time why that was happening, but it was all geopolitically related. Again, it was, Israel Iran stuff. So again, I wasn't worried about that. And we also, this green breakout trend line actually acted as support. So nevertheless, I actually added to my long. As I said in this post, I also added to my long over here as well. So this is my accumulation phase, essentially. But regardless, all this short-term price action doesn't really matter because according to Kramer, we're going to 1 million for Bitcoin. I mean, look at this. There's no way Bitcoin's going to 1 million. You know what that means? 1 million Bitcoin at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, maybe by 2030. But anyway, always counter trade this clown, how it goes. The ultimate counter trade signal, basically. So the altcoin market, let's have a quick look at what we could be expecting for the altcoin market. Now, again, I posted this on April 19, so a few days ago now, is that we're still up in this upward trend. Now, let's have a quick look at what that looks like. And we bounced perfectly off the bottom of the regression channel. So how good is that? It's kind of perfect, right? So here it is. There's our channel. We deviated above a little bit, hit underside resistance, underside and just overall resistance really, because you got a top here, bottom. So underside resistance reacted perfectly, got rejected, came down to support. Look at this support again, testing the top of this, and there's an order block right there as well. And then we whipped straight back into the channel. And we are off to the races potentially, either to create a range or to break out to the upside. So things are looking juicy for the altcoin market, no doubt about that. And I covered some potential paths, right? So this is what would happen if the market decided to enter a long-term range, which, definitely could happen as we have our sell and man go away or whatever you want to call it. So essentially this would what would probably look like. We might get a little pump to the upside, which I think if we have a look at the live chart of these two potential paths, essentially we've already broken above what this would be, but it's fractals don't work perfectly. They're just a rough estimation of what we could see. But anyway, so we've actually moved to the upside here, and we're starting to test this underside resistance essentially. But if we take the green path, then this is what we could be looking at. Or if we just get rejected here and then move to the downside, then this could be what we see, where we get an extended sort of drawdown period and then a move to the upside, and then something like this. There you go. This is like a jigsaw puzzle or something. But anyway, if Bitcoin remains bullish as it has been, then altcoins will also be bullish too. They just go hand in hand. So we could be seeing this green path here up to, remember this is emitting stablecoins, but up to just under the 1 trillion level. So that's pretty crazy. Let's see which path we take. Now, there's all this talk about Bitcoin runes. Now, if you don't really know what it is, it's very similar to ordinals. So Casey Rodarmer, I think, also developed this as well, because he developed the ordinals, which was NFTs and tokens on Bitcoin. So runes essentially is using UTXOs essentially for, so I'll go into some of the details here if you want to know what runes are. So Bitcoin runes are a new way to create fungible tokens directly on the Bitcoin blockchain. They were proposed in September 2023 by Casey Rodarmer. These stupid dots are in the way, but anyway, the creator of ordinals, and are expected to launch in April 2024, which has already happened. So here's a breakdown of what they are and how they work. So they're fungible tokens. Imagine tokens like digital coins. All Bitcoins are fungible, meaning one Bitcoin is identical to another. Bitcoin runes allow you to create new types of fungible tokens on the Bitcoin blockchain itself. So we're talking meme coins on Bitcoin, essentially. That's pretty much what it is. It's what it's going to be. So more efficient than previous methods before runes. There were other ways to create tokens on Bitcoin, like BRC20 standard. However, these methods were considered complex and created extra data on the blockchain. Runes aim to be simpler and more efficient. They use a UTXO-based standard, so they leverage Bitcoin's existing unspent transaction output model for managing tokens. This makes them more natural fit for the Bitcoin architecture. And also, because it uses UTXOs, it should create a smaller footprint on the Bitcoin blockchain compared to the other standards. So whether you like it or not, they're here. Whether they stay, who knows, because these things have blown transaction fees out of the water, as I showed before, with that crazy spike in the cost of transactions. Now, building directly on the Bitcoin blockchain, I'm not the biggest fan of it personally. I might be a bit of a boomer here. Again, remember the first time I bought Bitcoin was 2012, I think it was. So for me, I'm an OG. So I love this sort of concept of what Bitcoin is. And I love DeFi and I love tokens and stuff like that. But I don't think that Bitcoin's the place for them personally, but that's just me. Again, I'm a bit of a boomer, got my own opinion, and everyone's opinion will be different. But there's definitely alpha here, and there's definitely a potential for crazy price action on some of the new memes being minted on Bitcoin. But yeah, it's just creating this mooning effect essentially on the Bitcoin fee. So if you want to transfer any Bitcoin, it just costs a lot. So, and this might bleed over into the Solana segment a little bit, but you know, I think that it's still Bitcoin related, but I think we need to scale though, because trading tokens on the base chain isn't ideal. Again, it's my opinion. But if you look into Zeus network, this project is working towards scaling Bitcoin using Solana. So imagine Solana as a Bitcoin L2, and that's what they're trying to do, right? So, I mean, if you've had a look at some of the dexes and stuff for runes, it's such a clunky experience. I don't know why all the Bitcoin developers make everything just so crap. As in, like, I don't know, just because I'm used to the UX on Solana, which is one of the best in the space, essentially. But have a look at this. Look at this, like, just the layout of all this. It just looks terrible. I mean, it just doesn't look as good as, you know, what we're used to, right? But look at this. Am I buying a rune or writing code for Bitcoin 2.0? This thing looks hella complicated. I mean, look at that. Well, you know, in the eyes of this, if you want that same UX as Solana, then why not have things, all these runes and ecosystem coins on Solana? Hopefully that's what we'll get. Maybe we'll get wrapped versions of some of these assets on Bitcoin, leveraging the Zeus network protocol. I mean, that would be pretty cool. We don't know how far they're going to take this, but certainly super bullish on Zeus, because people that come into the space and want to start doing things with their Bitcoin, if they're curious about DeFi, and, you know, Solana's basically taken hold as, you know, one of the biggest used chains this cycle, then sort of it's the marriage, it's the best of both worlds, right? So we'll see. We'll definitely have to keep our eyes on these guys and see what they build, because, you know, both Solana and Bitcoin are both strong narratives in this cycle. So having the two combined, super bullish. And they even state here, so be careful what you wish for. If Zeus layer can be a layer 2 for Bitcoin L1, why can't we integrate ordinal or runes and other standards as well? Also, Zeus has listed on Pionex and OKX now, and the fundamentals are super strong. And if you want, as I covered in my last Solana video, go and check Apollo by Zeus, which is the platform they're currently building. But that's it for the Bitcoin and overall market update. And stay tuned for my Solana and other crypto ecosystem updates coming. I'm going to keep this video shorter so it's easier to digest, and that way you can get to what it is that you want to get to. Like, if you're not really interested in this stuff, then you can just skip and watch the ecosystem update videos instead. So anyway, in the short term, Bitcoin's looking pretty bullish and the crypto market's looking pretty bullish. We'll see if it can maintain that strength and keep pushing to the upside. But for now, things are looking pretty good, and all those dip buys are all up at the moment. So I hope to see you in the Solana and crypto ecosystem update video coming up. But if not, until next time. If you like the video, then please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this, and go follow me on X if you want more updates on the crypto space in real time. And I'll see you on the next one. Keep safe out there. This is Kryptolytix signing out. Have a good one.